Hi everyone, my name is Kendrick and welcome to ENFP Mail. Today I get to interview Leury. So Leury, welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So Leury, what is your complete type? Can you give us like the full type?
The full type is double feminine, Ne-Ti, consume, play, sleep, blast.
And then when you got your typing results back, what did you think and how did you feel?
For like half of the, for like 50% of it, I wasn't really that surprised. Within the last few months, I already got myself down to the IP-EP kind of section. I just didn't know it was going to be EP-IP that they were going to put me as. Yeah, and as far as the modalities were concerned, I was pretty much on the same page, and the animals didn't really shake me either, right? I was pretty flexible with most of that stuff. And for me, the most important part was just me dialing down on the masculine DI and knowing that I'm more of a chaos monkey that I like to let on. Yeah, but the one part that did shake me a little bit was actually coming face to face with being a lead EP. I was kind of definitely a little bit shooketh. I had to actually sleep process that in the middle of a conversation. But yeah, that's how I felt.
Did you think you were, because you thought you were an IP first, right? Like an IP-EP, but did you think you were like the TI kind or the FI kind? Like which one did you?
Yeah, my my self-typing journey went from, has gone really all over the map. And I think after I did like a deep consume of all of Dave and Chan's content on the website, and through that I kind of explored FI for quite a bit, and then I kind of let go of trying to figure out whether it's thinking or feeling, and just tried to hone down on is a masculine DI or not. Yeah, I started in the thinking field, ran back into feeling, and now I'm glad I'm back on the NT field for real now.
And then what about the NESI axis? Did you always feel like that was something that was there, or that was something that surprised you?
No, that's completely new to me. I have some people that, again, in my opinion, show SI or NE tendencies, and I definitely did not properly explore that axis because I always thought I thought I saw a lot of NI. And excuse me, now that I understand my type better, I know where that NI, when those NI tendencies are coming from. Those are coming from my masculine NE, and that's also coming from my SI FI sleep, which is third. So it's like a hobby.
How do you experience your masculine NE? Because that's the one that confuses a lot of people.
My masculine NE, just a second. I took notes because I want to sound smarter than I actually am. Yeah, so my masculine NE is I am always trying to connect everything to everything else. Even when I was like young and in middle school, I would learn stuff in like science class, and I would try to connect it with other things. And it felt like I was building like my internal like encyclopedia of stuff. And I think at a certain point, I realized that in school and like especially those early ages, you are spoon-fed like like a tiny fraction of what is actually important. And I actually got a little bit annoyed when I actually realized that, because I was like, wait, there's actually more to the story that you are choosing not to tell me. Yeah, so that's kind of when my love for doing research and learning stuff and connecting stuff to each other is about. And only recently I realized that not everybody jumps back and forth and connects all these crazy concepts together like I do. That is not normal. So it's nice to know that finally.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, you have to connect the dots for them because they can't fill in those blanks, essentially. It's
True.
like a superpower with people with NE to be able to kind of like, it's almost like when you're talking to someone, it's almost like a shortcut, like you don't have to say a lot of things because it's already kind of a given.
It's implied.
Yeah, exactly, with the NE. Now, you talked about the NE function itself, like what it does, and I can relate to that. But because yours is masculine, mine's feminine, there is that difference. So I want you to share to me some of your life experience with that. So I'll give you an example first, and then maybe you can give me some examples
Mm-hmm.
from your life. So I run a travel meetup here in Canada, but before the pandemic happened. And I get different people who come in and present, talk about like their travel experiences.
Yeah.
And there's this one girl that I think probably has masculine NE. She was definitely an ENFP, but we were so different because of that masculine NE. And basically, when she traveled, she liked going back to the same region in the world, to like the same places and the same theme. There is like a commonality in the way she did it, you know. So for example, she only liked going to European countries and Middle Eastern countries. And when she goes to those countries, she likes to spend a month and really like deep dive, get to know the whole country, you know, before she would go to another European country or another Middle East country. Um, Now for me, and I noticed people with feminine NE, the way we traveled was that when we go to a place, we don't want to go back there again. It's just like one and done.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the idea of going there to deep dive or even coming back again to deep dive and really, you know, explore it deeper is something that feminine NE people seem to avoid. Like I know one guy who I think is similar to me, like Play Blast NE. He literally will never, he refused to return to a country he's been to before. Like, you know, unless it's where he lives. Or unless it's convenient to where he lives, because it's just that feminine NE just really wants to gather like the vast amount without ever reworking the same thing again. So it seems like the common word here is reworking the same thing again. But that's why masculine NE can come across as NI because
Yeah.
of that. So with that information in mind, does that relate to you at all in how you approach things in your life? You know, when it comes to gathering a specific topic.
Yeah, I definitely have like core topics that I tend to gather or consume a lot of information for, and I always either find new puzzle pieces within that realm, right? I don't really open up too many channels. And that's part of the reason why I never really considered OE or even NE seriously before this, because I felt like I was very structured and pointed compared to the OE archetype that I have, at least in my brain. Yeah, so for example, as far as topics that I like to explore, currently I'm really into global warming and climate change. Before, my big project was microbiology, with an emphasis on the mind gut connection. So I went really crazy into that. And I'm also doing Japanese on the side. I'm playing piano, right? So I have all these cute little fields that I'm constantly hacking away at, maybe different approaches, but I'm not trying to find new sciences or new ways to save the world, right? I'm always trying to find new ways to tackle those same exact things. So I guess that's the closest thing that I have to the analogy that you gave.
Yeah, well, you're definitely NE because you're doing so many different stuff regardless. Like you know, like
It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a lot to me. It feels pretty normal and standard. But I mean, it wasn't really until recently that I looked at my bookshelf, and there's not much on my bookshelf. But like every single book is not related at all, and it's completely different field of science or math or physics, and they're completely unrelated. And I realized, yeah, that is not normal.
well, that is not NI. You know, that NI people don't do that shit, you know. So
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. And another way to, another thing to think about, another example, I guess, would be right now at my job that I currently have. I was hired as a CSR manager, so sustainability and all that beautiful shit. But I am also fucking around with talent management, and I'm also screwing around with marketing. And I just put together a crazy onboarding program. And our next topic that I'm working on is I already forgot what the next topic was that I'm working on. But the thing is, like, it wasn't really until recently that I realized I have my feet in so many pools, and I'm just jumping from one topic to another, and I'm going crazy with creating blown out projects with zero with not a lot of experience, whatever, to back anything up, right? But I can just pick something up really easily and run with it. And I have like 7 different projects in different areas that I'm already trying to execute. So it's very easy for me. And I'm realizing why people are so annoyed slash trouble keeping up with all the things that I'm doing, because I'm just doing too much in so many different topics, which is kind of hard to do unless you're NE or a little bit more flexible in that area.
Yeah, you would definitely piss off a lot of NI people with channel changing. But because you have masculine NE, would you say that channel changing is slower than, you know, I mean, obviously you don't have feminine NE, but you know, feminine NE channel change really quickly. But I think the masculine a little bit slower. Like you deep dive a little bit.
I have a boyfriend, and his my type for him. I've been with him for 2.5 years, so I think I have his type pretty close. I think he's gonna get typed in December or January. But he has, I think he is a NETE double masculine. So that is that is feminine NE right at the top. And it is scary to watch this kid do anything. It is actually, it's terrifying actually. And you just from observing him for 2.5 years, the way that I've basically defined feminine NE is just a distracted dog. I mean, that's one way to think about it. It's just feminine NE is just distracted by every single masculine SI point that comes out, and then you, for every single masculine SI thing that you see, you just extrapolate 50 different ideas, and you have to follow every single one of them, and then you get exposed to another SI point, and then you get exposed to another rainbow of options and ideas, right? And it's just this constant being disoriented by the options that are in front of you, and that's kind of what I see. It's kind of adorable, so I deal with it.
So he would be similar type as me then, if he was officially typed as an NET, because that's what I am, right?
Yeah, NET, but not play blast. So.
Oh, you think he's play consume? Play consume.
Oh yeah, he's definitely not play blast. He's pretty balanced in that level. Yeah.
Gotcha. Also with NE, because yours is masculine, the difference between masculine and feminine supposedly is that you have a better memory for that function. So basically with masculine NE, would you say that you tend to remember concepts and ideas better than facts and, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, talk about your experience with that.
Yeah, even when I was a little kid, this is something I noticed, and I wasn't really until I started again preparing for this interview that I started making some cool connections. And one thing that I wrote down, and I don't really know how relatable this is at all, but when I was younger, I would always get yelled at by adults and my teachers and my parents for not taking my time on exams. Right, I would walk into an exam, I would fill it out, and I'd hand it in, and it'd be the end of the story, and then I'd get yelled at for some fucking reason. And for me, at the end of the day, it's either I prepared well or I didn't, right? But no matter what I did, I know exactly what information I consumed. I know exactly what is in my brain and what's hidden in there, right? And there's no amount of searching I need to actually do to find the information. Either I know I studied this section or I didn't. Like there's no in between, right? Even still to this day, I'm pretty good at least understanding the conceptual direction of something and not letting go of that. That's not something I forget very easily. Facts, of course, that's a completely different story. Facts, schmacks, as I like to say. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. As long as the abstract direction is still going in the right direction, I'm playing ball. So that's all that matters to me.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we'll explore that more later on. So back to the NE again. You have double masculine consume. So talk about having double masculine consume.
Okay, so let's see. Double masculine
Yeah,
consume.
you have N-E-T-I, and they're both masculine.
Yeah.
So double masculine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I wrote several rants about that. Okay, so while we're on the topic of memory, right? Another aspect of that I think is relearning information. And I think it's very hard for me to be exposed to the same piece of information again. Especially if it's something that I have to rework in some kind of way. And I am kind of entering into awkward blast rant territory here, so I'm sorry if it gets weird. But as I look off into the distance, for example, German. I grew up in Germany. I saw my first language was German. Then we moved to the United States. I lived there for 20 years. And then while I was living in the States, I still spoke German with my parents in the household, right? But at some point, that diminished because, the only formal schooling that I got was until second grade. So that doesn't really stick around for that much longer if you don't really properly practice it. But now I moved to Germany again at the beginning of the year. And one thing that I was basically dreading when I was moving back here was having to relearn German, because nothing is more painful to me than having having to relearn information, especially when I don't know where the boundaries are with what I actually know or don't know, right? If it's something that I learned like a few weeks ago, right, that's a completely different story because I know exactly where those boundaries are, right, which is why I have no problem taking any test on that, right? But as far as relearning a language is concerned, I feel like there's so much effort that I need to do to properly consume it, right? And my MO is basically to make my learning process as efficient as possible, which means I would never, ever pick up a book on German and just read it from start to beginning. I would pinpoint the chapters that I actually need help in, right? Because I know exactly what parts I'm good in and what part I'm bad at. But for German, I can't do that because I don't know where the boundaries are. So obviously that is something really annoying for me. But for other things, like for OP, like this knowing exactly what I know, what I don't know, allows me to, again, if Dave and Chan's system was organized just a tad bit better, I would be able to go in there and find the specific exact videos that are going to give me the snippets and nuggets that I need to add to my understanding, right? So I guess I feel like consume, in a sense, is a superpower of mine because I'm able to pinpoint exactly what I need to further my understanding, if that makes any sense. And if my rant actually went anywhere. So.
Are you also very aggressive with what you consume? So for example, you are having a discussion with somebody and they call you out for, having misinformation and you're like, nah, I know what I researched. Like, would you be aggressive? Not really.
I will definitely stand my ground, but I am in no way going to try to defend myself or force the other person to understand or submit to my view. I feel like maybe that's my DI, but it's not my responsibility to make things work for you. I know it works for me, and I know that my information is correct for me. Maybe it's a little nuanced, maybe it's not completely on point, but it works for me, so go fuck yourself.
Let's talk about your masculine TI since we're on that topic already. What is masculine TI like for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is I'm constantly trying for the things that I'm interested in. I try to make things work. I try to figure out new solutions. Sometimes awkwardly it comes out, and I am. I guess that's my blast. Maybe that's why it's so awkward. No, that's not my blast. That's not how blast works. But sometimes I am policing other people's logic. Like we'll be having an argument, and you'll say, you'll structure a sentence in a specific way that applies a completely different outcome and a completely misunderstanding of the overall concept, whatever. And I'm like, I know you're basically yelling at me because I forgot to do this, but the part right here that you're saying was kind of really sexist, so let's work on that. And I call people out on their logic. Not as much as other people do, but I do, like, once in a blue moon, enjoy a little TI call out. Let's see, apart from that, and let me check my notes again. There. Yeah, another point that I wrote down here was growing up with my parents. It was a very interesting experience because my parents were trying to teach me potentially a lot of SITE lessons, right? Of making sure that my room's clean and making sure I'm super disciplined and very structured and regimented and all that stuff. And sadly, that doesn't work so well for EPs. I keep hearing. But the one weird thing was, maybe it's also the doubles deciding in me, but like they were trying to teach me lessons by using shame and all these other kind of I feel like FE kind of demeaning tactics, right? And I would just sit there and I'd be like, okay, I understand what you're trying to do here. I know what the outcome here is. Can I just skip all of this and go to my room? Because I know exactly what is expected of here. I know exactly how long this conversation is going to take. And I know exactly that it's not going to go anywhere. So can we just move this along, right? And this logical TI block reasoning, for some reason, didn't work on my parents. So that got me grounded way more than I expected initially. But I mean, at least that kind of taught me some valuable lessons, and here I am. Let's see what else as far as TI. Yeah, for some reason, I really thought I was not going to ramble about random stuff, but here I am. And yeah, as far as TI is concerned, it took quite a while for me to figure out the people game. But as far as friends was concerned, it was definitely a learning curve of realizing that not every problem can be solved with just being harshly blunt and just reasoning with people. Apparently, there's a feelings component that I also need to take into consideration. And I think I'm doing a pretty much better job at that at the moment.
I like how your double masculine consume is showing everywhere, because like in the middle of the interview you're like researching, like you're just like,
because I can't I really thought that I would be able to play energy this out, but I don't have any of the stuff that I researched and wrote down retained at all, so I'm scrambling here.
it's all good, man. It doesn't matter. I know it's all part of like showing what kind of someone of your type would act, right? So like the fact that you're like, oh, I'm going to consume in the middle of the interview. It's kind of like when they showed a video in their class of Lewis House. He's like in the middle of the interview and he's like reading a book, the guy's book. He's like reading the guy's book in the middle of the interview. Consume first. So this is all good stuff, man. Let's talk about your FE. So you have feminine FE. Talk about that. So there's gonna be
Let me jump to the feminine FE section of my notes.
Sure. So there's gonna be the tribe spectrum of values, and you can see the values. And people with FE tend to stick with tribe values. So talk about just joining along with the tribe values, and you're like, okay, yeah, if that's what the tribe values, I'm cool with that. flexible with that?
I don't have specific examples, right? But I definitely have started to notice in myself as of lately. Obviously, I've been realizing a lot of stuff about OP lately, considering the floodgates have been opened. But yeah, every now and then, I'd read stuff on Facebook, or read some news articles, and then it would just be like I noticed that in my next conversation, like whatever I just consume magically comes up in the sense of me having updated my TI, right? And it's weird because I feel like my TI, I actually with my TI and my consume, I'm actually actively pulling information to update my myself and my identity, right? But with my FE, I feel like it's like a sideways passive kind of thing where I read something and then later I'm just like, oh wait, didn't I hear that? Didn't someone else say that? But now I'm regurgitating it as if I believe it as well. Maybe I think that falls in there. Yeah, I think you were just talking about absorbing the tribe's values, right?
I'm not talking about absorbing the tribe's values. I'm talking about you adhering to tribe values. So I'll give you an example. Like let's go with religion. People with FE tend to, like, let's say their family is a specific religion. They're like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll just be that religion, whatever. I don't care. Or yeah, something like that. Or like it could be a racial thing. Like hold on, hold your thought. It could also be a racial thing where, like, for me, I'm Asian, right? So if the person is FE and they're Asian, it's like, okay, as an Asian person, you need to be good with math or good with money. You need to be conservative, blah, blah, blah. Or you're German, right? So you need to be efficient. You need to be, strict, on point. Like there's like certain values that you follow based on your race, based on your family's traditions, based on religion. So would you say you're kind of like passive with that kind of stuff? You're like, okay, you know what? I'll just take it. I don't care. I'll just like.
I haven't properly explored that yet, but just from my experiences so far, I seem to be pretty against most things that have been thrown my way. Yeah, my parents, oh yeah, but then again, I don't know how close really parents are, because I kind of rebelled against, yeah, I kind of, I've stood basically against everything they stood for since I was 6, and I haven't really budged. I'm not too familiar.
Okay, maybe not parents. What about like any new tribe that you joined? Like, group of friends growing up, whether that be elementary school, high school, post-secondary, like, would you say that, that you would join a group of people and they have a specific values, for example, let's say people, if you live in Oregon, right? They're very hippie-ish there. It's like the NF capital of the US. So when you go there, everyone's like anti-Trump. Everyone there is like LGBTQ, let's go, like all that, that stuff is big in that area. So that's kind of like their values there, well, versus if you go to Texas, their values like, yeah, guns, we have the right to have guns, So
I don't relate to that at all. I feel like everywhere that I go, I've been the unicorn pillar that doesn't really move. But again, I have not properly explored this side yet, in case there is something hidden there that actually falls in line with what you're saying.
Okay, let's talk about your play, because your play is NF, right? Talk about your NF play. What is your NF play like?
My NF play. Yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to brighten the mood in the room, especially when it comes to people that I know and that I'm close to, right? So I'm always doing weird, goofy stuff. Yeah, and then I'm also very, maybe that falls more in line with the FE, but I'm very sensitive to changes in tribe dynamics. Yeah, like body language and body language and like silences and all those kinds of things. Like I feel like those speak so much louder than words. And people get pretty annoyed or freaked out when I call people out on it, and I'm usually spot on. Yeah, as far as NF, I don't really have that much extra to say on that. Again, I'm also in the middle of exploring that.
So you can pick out the tribe vibes then, essentially. Like when something's off about somebody, you can kind of tell, you know.
Yeah. If I'm not a compromise myself, and we are sitting close to each other and I'm engaging in a conversation, I can tell immediately as soon as you lose interest. And as soon as you lose interest, then I basically get demotivated. I'm like, I shouldn't be pushing myself, imposing my will on this other human being. So I need to shut the fuck up and move on, or again, quiet down or change the subject. Right? Yeah.
Do you tend to mirror the emotions of the tribe too? So if someone's sad, you would mirror that, like you would look sad also, or feel sad also?
Not 100% sure about the actual mirroring, right? But I do know if I have a person in front of me that is sad, I can tell that they're sad, and I'm going to try to act accordingly, as in, if I actually want to take care of the person, then I'm actually going to check in on them. If I actually want to avoid that human being, I'm just going to be as neutral and as unabrasive as possible and move on. So yes, I am aware of that, and I try to respect that as best as I can.
Also, with
unlike other people that I've met that just basically push their emotion or what they think the tribe is feeling, and are constantly running around and they're happy, everything's great and beautiful and sunshine, and why aren't you smiling as well? Kind of bullshit, and those people scare me a lot.
well, you don't have masculine FE, so you don't do that. You don't enforce what you should be feeling, but you kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah. Oh, I actually, I'm not sure if it's my mom and my dad, but my mom definitely has some form of lead feeling, probably masculine FE, of always telling me what I should be feeling or not.
Yeah.
And obviously, what I was feeling and expressing was always on the opposite end of what was correct to my parents. So that was fun.
Going back to NF play again. So NF is purpose, essentially. Like, what is the point? What is your purpose? You have that in a savior state. So would you say you are pretty aware of your purpose, or like what is the point of like you engaging in either your consume or the path that you're following in your life? And would you say you are also interested in other people's purpose, because it's play, right? So there is that back and forth dynamic with other people. So is that something that would fascinate you a lot? Is that, when people start talking to you about their own purpose too, is that something that you'd like to learn more from other people as well, since it's in a play in part of your animals and also in a savior state?
The whole purpose thing, that's definitely a new twist that I also haven't explored. But yeah, I'm going to definitely update my definition of NF with that. But in terms of the actual purpose of what I'm doing, right, I'm constantly asking myself, why am I doing this? What is the point of this? What is the point of the job that I'm in? There's no purpose. There's no future that I have in this, so I need to move on, right? So that NF definitely does drive me. I am also, when I'm working closely with people and talking closely, or when I'm very close with people, I'm also trying to guide the NF of those around me to one that actually makes sense, as opposed to someone just doing something for the sake of it, or someone doing something for the sake of because someone told them to do so, right? I'm always, again, not too aggressively, but try to see and dig and try to help people actually uncover the why are they doing stuff, and why should they break up with their boyfriend and that kind of stuff.
So the thing with NF also is that with NT, sometimes you argue for the sake of arguing, but then the NF person will come and be like, what's the what's the point of this? Like, what's the purpose? Like, what are we trying to achieve here? Do you just want to be right? Because that's stupid. That doesn't really help us go anywhere, you know? Like, you're right, but now you're an asshole. Everyone hates you, right? But like,
Yeah.
but with the NF, it's like, okay, what is like that you know, that North Star that we're trying to
Yeah.
So I'm more curious to see how you use it personally, because yours is, you use it as a play. It's play, and it's also your savior. It's a savior state. So you must do
Yeah.
it naturally already, because it's it's your savior state, you know. So
Yeah.
do you have any idea or have any examples when you've kind of like, you know, switch gears from your NT side of your head to like NF side of your head, where you're like, let's say you're in an argument, and then you're like, you know what, there's no purpose to this, it's like a waste of time, you know, it's not helping us get to the North Star at all.
Yeah. Yeah, all the time, either when I'm in arguments with my boyfriend or other people or people at work. There is, I don't know, for me, it feels like a 50-50. I don't know. I don't really feel like it's switching from one to the other. I feel like both are concepts that I'm pushing forward at the same time in parallel of let's figure out how are we getting this done, how we fix this, whatever, while also respecting of the what are we achieving with this and what's the goal behind it. Yeah, so I don't really, I feel like, again, to me, those are just blended. That's how I solve problems, right? Yeah. Yeah, and I work most of the time. As far as when I'm working on stuff, I'm usually going to my silo, my cave, where banging things out and then presenting it at the end of the day. So I feel like I'm missing out on quite a few of play opportunities with people. Yeah.
Well, I think the reason why it would be blended is because, you know, they both are connected with your NE, and you have
Exactly.
activated NE, so it would show in that. Let's talk about your sleep next. You have double activated TI, and your sleep is ST. So what is ST sleep for you? How do you experience that? It's in a demon state, but it's not your fourth demon, it's your third. So you can
My
still,
hobby.
your hobby, yeah, that's how they define
Yeah.
it. So talk about that.
So I am yeah, and I've especially been practicing that more rigorously lately. But when I am actually about to get a project started, right, the last thing that I do before I'm actually implementing something, then I guess I can actually see myself going through the animal order for projects at least. The third step is always sitting down and saying, okay, now I have all this information. Now what am I going to do with it? And I usually make a list. I'm surprised that I never connected this to SI before, because I never thought of it as an actual checklist like I assumed SI should be, right? But I guess that's the difference between masculine and SI, with very rigid checkbox like steps and just having clear steps like I do, which is still SI. So yeah, for example, my new work tool that I use now is whenever I have a task or project or something that I'm working on, I make sure to allocate an hour or more, whatever, for just brainstorming on that topic. And that brainstorming session is usually me starting with, okay, I'm doing this project, this is what the goal is, this is what I'm trying to achieve with it. And then I just literally start breaking it down into all of these chunks. And before you know it, I created 7 different strategies with completely different topics in one day, because I can break it down so easily with ST.
Do you also use your ST sleep for your own personal life? Because after I interviewed some ENTPs, they said that they use their ST sleep to kind of think, okay, what am I going to do today? Okay, this is, okay, first I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do this, you know, and then tomorrow I'm going to do this. You know, it's like step by step, right? So do you do that with
Yep.
yourself? Like, do you have like a plan for each day?
Yes, I guess the the stuff that I do for work just feels a little bit more concrete. And that's probably because I'm writing it down. And I think as a tester, that's probably me using it in the best efficiency. But when I'm doing it for my real life work, I mean, day-to-day kind of deal, it is just happening in my head. Which is not really the most efficient for me, sadly. But I still am able to very easy plan out my day, my evening, my next few days, and say, okay, this is what's happening today. I have my interview with Kendrick at 8, and then I'm eating dinner afterwards, and then this is happening, and I can very clearly map out the next few days based off of that. And I do that very often. I mean, I do that all the time, sometimes without even thinking about it. But at the end of the day, it's clear that it's not a savior. It is a button I've learned to press pretty efficiently.
Let's talk about your last animal. You have double feminine SF blast last. Talk about life problems that you've had because of blast last.
Speaking up, asking for help. So I have been living on my own since I was 20 years old. My parents got divorced, things got weird at home, and then I figured out how to live at college on my own, separate from my parents, got many jobs, whatever, and basically actually no, even before then, I didn't really accept anybody's help, right? I always put that pressure on me, and that makes sense because probably with the masculine TI savior, double activated. And for me, the reason has always been, why would I ask someone else to do something that I could do myself? Right? Like, why would I inconvenience someone else with something that I can do myself? Like, it literally makes zero sense to me. But I've opened myself up to the realization that, people are around, and, if people want to help, if they can help, then why the heck not? If they're offering, then that's just, might as well take use of it. And I'm taking so little advantage of people around me and shaming myself into taking people's help that it's just, might as well. And then as far as the last some tidal waves, last week or two ago, I had a meeting that I needed to run. Just backstory, I just implemented an onboarding program at my company. Basically, a program from like A to Z. I planned it all out. And considering I'm the main person running this, I also am the one running all the meetings and whatever. I'm also administrating it too. As far as putting out the strategy together, getting everybody on the same page is concerned, and making it as official as possible by making sure that the process has been updated in the required documents, whatever. I'm perfect on all of that stuff. But the part that I tripped on was actually going into the factory, going into our factory, finding the two employees and dragging them from there in the middle of their workday to the meeting room so I could have my little check-in with them. And I could not get myself to do it. I literally was hit by a social anxiety. I literally went down the stairs, went in the room, looked out there, saw that they were busy doing other stuff, and I convinced myself that I would be imposing myself upon them. And in my head, I'm like, yo, dude, that makes no sense. It's your job to do this. And yes, they may not want to talk to the CSR manager about this topic, and they probably think that's the dumbest thing ever and it adds no value, but adding up all these different experiences that I am now improving at the company, that's obviously has a shit ton of value, so just fucking do it already. But no, I literally froze, and I packed up my things and went back upstairs. It was quite pathetic. And I ended up doing the interviews with the check-ins with the guys online the next day, but again, in person, that I don't know if it's the awareness of the NF that literally is can be a blessing, but also a curse, especially if I am in some kind of way incapacitated.
Part of your SF blast is also, like teacher lessons essentially, and yours is in an SF form. So when I was going to college, I was part of this fashion event, and we were working with a celebrity image consultant, and she used to do like the image consulting for Bill Clinton and like a lot of famous people. So she was quite a diva when she was when we were dealing with her. But the one thing that I noticed about her with that SF blast, which I didn't know was SF blast back then, was that she was really good at teaching us what looked good, like on an SF, like in the physical world. So for example, she went up to me and she's like, "You have a small head, you need to wear a V-neck, and clothes that would look good on you would be a vest, a cardigan, and maybe some brown shoes, some brown belt. Your skin tone is autumn. So because you have an autumn skin tone, the kind of colors that would look good with you would be autumn colors, So that's what that's like the best example for like an SF blast is to me. It's like kind of like telling someone or teaching someone what would look good, or yeah. So do you ever you have blast last? So do you ever like make those comments with coworkers or friends or your boyfriend, like, hey, you know what, you need to wear this outfit with this outfit because that would look good with this, like it's completely just what would look good, there's no, so
I don't have that for clothes at all.
but for some other stuff, do you do it for other stuff?
But I do have that for like marketing and business design. I'm not the perfect and the most best at this at all, right? But I feel like I have a certain sense of style that a lot of people around me are completely lacking. Like, yeah. For example, right now we're trying to update. Yeah, actually, when I entered the company, as soon as I walked in there, I noticed that the footer and the footer in our email signature, like we have this little banner at the bottom, and it is just it's like 10 pages tall. Like it just looks ridiculous. So I pointed it out. I pointed it out numerous times, and then I was like, okay, listen, guys, here is my suggestion for it. And I threw a suggestion together, and my suggestion looks all like nicely organized and clean and everything, and I threw it out there. And then people gave me other suggestions, and I'm all for other suggestions, but in terms of presenting something that is actually viable and actually looks good by itself, right? Yes, I have a very specific style, and I can tell that certain people's don't really have. I don't know. I don't want to sound as harsh as any style essentially. There's just like any style or awareness of the space and the fact that their things need to be aligned, and that there needs to be there needs to be margins and enough room around text and stuff like that. And I'm not talking about a very strict CI that someone would follow, like my boyfriend does. He has like a very specific like rules that he wants to follow, and I can work around that. And again, I definitely can see that as far as marketing and images and stuff like that is concerned.
Okay, so you do.
I wish it was a little bit stronger than last, but I work with what I got.
Yeah, no, it seems like you're forced to use it because you're at a workplace. You do have to communicate that to people. Otherwise, it is part of your job, right? Like you have to do it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your SI last. So your feminine SI, it's right in the bottom. What kind of tidal waves have you had? With like SI last, right in the bottom, right there.
SI last tidal waves. Give me a second. Completely blanking here.
If you need examples, I can give you some. I have SI last too, like you do.
yeah. With anything, it would definitely help if you just continue with examples too.
Okay, so for me,
Jumpstart my NE.
like I always forget concepts, right? And one of the biggest things I learned as I, having that NESI access is that I didn't really consume anything if I didn't organize that information that I have consumed into like an SI step-by-step kind of format. So from now on, like what I do now is like whenever I read a book, I always think to myself, okay, how can I stick this in like a aspect of my life, whether that be fitness or relationships or business or marketing. Like where can I stick in like an SI step-by-step based on something that I've consumed,
Do you have masculine SI?
I have masculine SI, right?
Yeah, that sounds like masculine SI.
It is. But because I forget the NE, but if I can funnel it down to, step by step, like for example, for fitness, right? Like, okay, this is for the warm up routine, I need to do this. For I need to do this. For the the stretching and muscular release, I need to do this. And then for nutrition, I need to do this. And it's like step by step, So what are you, I guess, not doing then with your SI? So I'll give you a tidal wave for me, okay? My biggest life problem for the many years now is I always go into debt. Freaking go into debt because I don't control my money, right? That's SI. I'm not controlling my money.
Mm-hmm.
So because I don't control my money's out of control and it controls me. It wasn't until this year, actually, the pandemic was kind of like a big shocker. I had a coaching call with Dave actually before the pandemic. And I told him, I'm like, hey man, guess what? I controlled myself. I did not spend money on things that, I wanted to spend on because I wanted to kill off my debt, and I killed off my debt. And right after I killed off my debt, the pandemic happened, and I was essentially out of job. But because I paid off my debt, I didn't have a bigger problem like a lot of people did with money because I was debt free, and it was like a positive tidal wave, where before it was a negative tidal wave where I was in debt, and it was like I was like a prisoner essentially, and the worst thing an EP could ever experience is being a prisoner. So that was my tidal wave that I just overcame this year, which is like, I need to control my money. I'm not going to spend money unless I have it, and I have to make sure I'm saving. So what are you not controlling with your SI for yourself? That's physical. For me, it's money. So what is yours? Like, what are you not controlling? That's causing you.
In all this time with OP, I still haven't really identified any ridiculous SI tidal waves on my end. I'm not saying I don't have any at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I haven't connected it to some problems yet that I have. I mean,
health issues.
Yes, there's obviously the money aspect too, but I am pretty balanced in that sense that I'm not ever worried like that I'm going into debt. I basically every few months I'm basically checking my finances, do a cute little balance sheet, and just make sure that I'm following along. I have a certain margin of error that I know I'm falling in with, right? And like I already know that this month I ordered out 3 times too many, right? But in terms of my margin of error, I know that I'm perfectly fine. And it always seems to be the case that I always catch myself or before it goes too far. So I've been pretty lucky as far as that was concerned.
What about health?
Health?
Yeah.
I'm fluctuating here and there between eating very healthily and then not, right? But it is, but it all adds up to pretty more on the healthy side.
Exercise.
Apart from like
exercise.
I work out every now and then, and sometimes I don't. Listen, for me, most of these things completely balance out. I'm not careening completely out of control really anywhere as far as these things concerned. But if we are trying to pinpoint specific SI things, I've been pretty lucky in terms of half-assing the planning out for most of my SI stuff, and it's still working out. But at the beginning of the whole Corona stuff that happened, the whole Corona crisis, I did have a little freak out. I have to revisit that whole freak out with the new lens of understanding my type. But The freak out was something along the lines of my yeah, I have to send a check to the States because I have accounts that need to be paid, and the timing was off by a little bit, but I thought I would be able to get the money in on time. I forgot that my rent check was going to be pulled out on Saturday. So I went to the store on Sunday and not on Sunday because we're closed. But I think I went to the store on Saturday and I checked my app and it was like, the app said, oh, everything's fine. There's, you still have enough money. And I was like, okay, cool. Nothing has been pulled out yet. My rent check hasn't been pulled out yet. And my US check hasn't been pulled out yet. Right. So on Monday I went to the store. And I checked my app again, knowing very well that I may already be in the negatives. And if that was the case, I would have been like, okay, no problem. I'm just going to walk back home. No big deal, because that is already an option that I had anticipated, right? No big deal right there. But I had a full-on tidal wave because my app said that there was still money in my account, right? So I'm like, okay, so for some reason the rent check didn't pull out, right? So at the end of the day, it said that I had enough money. I walked to the store and then my credit card bounced. I double checked the app and still said that I had money. So obviously I freaked out about the app and went into a little spiral about that. Yeah, but then again, I was also kind of awkward standing in a store and them thinking that I'm trying to steal stuff from them. That obviously made the situation a little bit more awkward. But apart from that occurrence, I can honestly say there's not that many crazy tidal waves that are happening. Probably not like major ones, at least, because again, I've been living on my own. If I forget to pay rent or forget to whatever, like there's no one there to catch me if I fall. So I've always made sure to really cross my T's and check my I's with that, with money and those kinds of things.
All right. I have two last questions for you and then we'll wrap up the interview. So the first one is, how do you experience being an energy dominant person? You know, like, are you obsessed with expending and preserving energy? Like you're really balanced with that kind of stuff? And then for not having, for having blast last, you know, where that information accuracy, do you not double check your information with the tribe when you have gathered your information? So talk about the difference between you being an energy dominant and not being an info dominant.
In terms of energy, it was the longest time that I thought I was a sleep savior because I was constantly getting drained by people and energy and people expenditure, especially my boyfriend who's a lead play feminine NE distracted monster who's just getting distracted for the sake of getting distracted without even taking into account the time commitment for anything that he does. And he just runs past every single rock, to every single scroll, to any single activity that seems exciting for him without taking into account the reasoning, the point, or the time behind it. So that used to drain me a lot. There's just a certain level of being very chill and aware of the energy expenditure of anything that I put my mind to. And then tying that to information. I don't really like to spend too much time reworking stuff or revisiting topics that I've already thought through, right? So if I have thought through an email and then later I have to send it, like it's probably best practice to just double check it again. And I'm like, I should probably double check this again. And then the other part of me is just like, we're not going to double check this again, are we? And then I just sent it out. And then later I found out, I misspelled out one thing. Again, just like with many other things in my life, I really make sure that I am coming off way more organized than I actually am. So there aren't really that many crazy things that happen in that sense. But yes, I mean, maybe another example would be running to the store and getting groceries. It's like I do this every single time I go out, before I go out to do groceries. I stand in front of my fridge, I take an inventory of what I have, and then I try to plan out what my week is going to consist of. And again, if I actually used lists or some kind of visual kind of writing thing, that would actually help. But since I'm doing it in my head, I kind of get to basically the next day. And then I'm like, I can't do this. I'm just going to the store. And then I go to the store and just grab random things that I think make sense to me. And usually I come back and the fridge is emptier than when I actually left. So go figure. So I think that definitely seems like an energy dominant thing to do.
My last question for you is in regards to your sexual modalities. So you are tester and visual. So talk about being tester and visual.
I think my tester thing comes out a lot when I am playing piano. At least the way that I learn piano is, again, the movement and the repetitive, repetition and actually feeling the keys under on my skin. There's just a lot of muscle memory that goes into play for that. And I think the same can be said about passwords and me. Passwords, passcodes, and pins, though that's all muscle memory. And like maybe I know how to phonetically say my passwords, but at the end of the day, I have no idea what the actual keys are that I'm supposed to hit if my hands aren't doing the talking. So I'm very fucked when I'm going to a different type of keyboard. For example, I have a standard US style laptop, and I have a German keyboard laptop, and I had to reteach myself all of my passwords, which is terrible considering I have lots of passwords. They're all complicated, and now I need to relearn them knowing completely different keys. So tester for me equals muscle memory. And then visual, muscle memory, and obviously writing things down helps me memorize stuff too. And visual, I can definitely say I'm not audio or kinesthetic. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Gotcha. All right, Leury, thank you again for doing today's interview and sharing what your type is all about and your experiences, being this specific type.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
All right, man. So bye to everyone and bye to you, dude. I gotta get going.
See you. Bye. See you.